Okay, I promise this is not going to be about anything to do with the coronavirus epidemic. This is a book about Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme. Sometimes you meet someone through a friend and you become better friends with the second person than you were with the first. It can work that way with books, too. I was reading a book and it mentioned another, and I thought I better look that one up. I'm glad I did. It was No One Would Listen, a true financial thriller written by the man who was the chief whistleblower in the Wall Street Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme, where the losses incurred totaled over $50 billion. The title of the book is somewhat misleading. Many people listened, a few understood, and no one took action. And the book is not a thriller. It's anything but that. I'd call it a bureaucratic nightmare. The main dunderheads being the gang over at the Securities and Exchange Commission. The author warned them in pages of detailed evidence about Madoff's fraudulent scheme several times over a nearly 10-year period, and they found various ways to do nothing about it. The author is a born skeptic and a nerd. He writes, "If you ran a chain of restaurants, you will learn more about retail theft than you would care to know. I learned accounting in those restaurants. Our goal was 3% waste. Too little waste meant you were not providing a quality product. Too much waste meant there was theft. I appreciate mathematics. I enjoy watching the choreography of the numbers. I'm a quantitative analyst. I speak the language of numbers. Numbers contain an entire story. I can see the beauty, the humor, and sometimes the tragedy in the numbers. The numbers can't lie, but the people who create the numbers can and do lie." What surprised me from the very beginning of my career was the level of corruption that was simply an accepted way of doing business. In a business where money is the scoreboard, there is a certain level of ingrained dishonesty that is tolerated. The industry is based on predatory relationships. If you do not know who the predator is, then you are the prey. Asking the SEC to monitor the financial industry, he says, is like sending chickens out to chase the fox. The people in the SEC, including a host of lawyers, had little knowledge of the way it worked and none of the complicated but vital math. The SEC had been captured by the industry it was supposed to regulate. The objective for many in the agency was to put in a few years and then land a decent position in the industry. This is true across the board: finance, pharmaceuticals, and insurance. And this was only one reason the SEC did not go after Bernie Madoff. Another is simple incompetence. Another is the certain realization that blowing up a whale like Madoff would lead to instant catastrophe for many people. Thousands would be ruined. Doing nothing protected them, in a way, for a while at least. Some people live by what is called magical thinking. They hope that if they look away and do nothing, just hold on, their problems will melt away, and they will magically sort themselves out. Instead, alas, it's much more likely that their problems will grow worse. That's what happened here. And the worse it got, the less likely it became that the SEC would act. At the time Madoff was brought to their attention by the author, he was already handling $7 billion. Years of systematic thumb twiddling allowed him to reach over $50 billion. In order for him to operate, he had to continue to grow. That's the way the Ponzi scheme works, the only way. The very size of his operation was the biggest red flag of all. When he could no longer grow fast enough to support the gigantic fraud, Madoff turned himself in. The author initially fastened on Madoff because his company wanted him to create a product that they could sell that would produce returns like Bernie. Investigating those returns, the author knew Bernie had to be a fraud. There was no simple strategy that produces a consistent return no matter what the market does. He knew the numbers were impossible. But when he said that, or he said he thought Madoff was a fraud, his company thought he was making excuses instead of a clever product they could sell. Look at the return stream this guy is putting out, his company said. This is what the market wants to buy. And that was so. Bernie Madoff was the perfect product. He was magical, a wizard. Many people knew it had to be a lie, but did not question it as long as those returns kept pouring in. Everyone thought they were among a select few whose money he had agreed to handle. They were grateful to him. He gave out no information about his process, only a few hints, and that solid monthly return. That was enough. No one wanted more. Just keep it coming, Bernie. Those people, not the SEC, ruined themselves. They knew something was not kosher. They weren't stupid or hapless victims. They were blinded by greed. And the author says he was no hero, and he wasn't. I did not help anybody. I did not save anybody a cent, he wrote. Also true.